And yeah, do you want to start us off first with where you're coming from, like what your background is, and then we can know where the story is going to kind of go based on your background and your experience.
Well, I think I sort of have a little bit of a game plan, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll do a little contemplative exercise, and that will actually give me a chance to get to know you a little better, and then hopefully we can have a good conversation. But to start off, I became a therapist years ago and wanted to work through personal loss. I was motivated to work with end of life care as people are dying, with their family members, with their caregivers. And hospitals don't hire counselors, they hire social workers to do paperwork and line up insurance and so forth. But the people who offer support and care are chaplains. And as a contemplative, I had to figure out like how can I become a chaplain and as a counselor and all that. So that's what I did. I simply, I was watching an episode of Scrubs, and in every episode of Scrubs, there's a moment where all the animated silliness stops and there's something real happening. Someone gets hit hard by something, usually one of our favorite characters. And I thought, oh gosh, I've got to go work in the hospital. So I became an palliative chaplain. And the thing to know about chaplaincy is people will say, well, are you a Christian chaplain, a Buddhist chaplain, a Jewish chaplain? Chaplaincy is all faiths, no faiths. People could be atheists or spiritual but not religious, or they could be Baptists. And our job is to not bring our spiritual identity into the room, but to meet people where they are and see what their needs are. And you pick up, you can, if you see a rosary and a picture of Mary, you kind of have a good idea. And sometimes you just, you learn how to read the field. And the longest skill took me was to learn how to pray like a Baptist, because that's the furthest from my own practice. But you learn how to meet people, and you know that's been my an interest of mine, working in the hospital for 5 or 6 years until the pandemic. And then chaplaincy changed. It was iPads and therapy, need for therapy skyrocketed. So I've settled into that, but I still do end of life care for clients, family members, or for clients, and anyone in various spiritual communities who's looking for, chaplaincy is spiritual care and counseling for end of life. And oftentimes we are working with family members and we learn as much about their lives. In fact, sometimes we learn more about their lives because the patient may be medicated, may be non-communicative, may be transitioning. And so we are often working with Jared and Sonia and Tamika and Gabriella.
Yeah.
No festies.
No, Bessie.
So that's a little bit about why I was so happy to see Kicking the Bucket as a podcast and as a participatory program being offered. So here's what I thought we would do is I'm looking to see what makes sense because I have so many choices here. I think I'm going to suggest that we, since I've been chatting a lot already, um, take a moment, or maybe 2 or 60 moments, maybe a minute, to just arrive and be here in this group together. Because as a practice of impermanence, the group that's here tonight will never be together again, most likely. This will be a one-time deal, and some of us may see each other again, but maybe not. So if we will just take our seat, and you might say, well, Jinji, we're already sitting, but part of mindfulness is returning to that which is already occurring that we forget. So we consciously realize we're sitting, we feel our feet on the ground, we feel the chair beneath us. We take a moment. So we're not meditating, we're just pausing and paying attention to the body, which holds a lot of our psycho-emotional experience. The brain is part of the body, the chest and the stomach. And take a moment now. If you like, you can just, you've arrived in your chair, you're seated, you know where your feet are, your hands can be wherever is comfortable, your shoulders are level and neutral. And for me, I always just kind of use my hands like stethoscopes to see where I am. So, busy day, lots of traffic. Everyone comes from a different place, part of Austin. So we gather our awareness, we return to our body, and we recall our intention. We remember why we're here. What has brought each of us to this room this evening? Why are we listening to this podcast? And why are we going to have a conversation about it? So we are tuning in to our own immediate interior experience. We've sat, we've checked in with our inner landscape, and now we're going to explore the experience of listening to kicking the bucket, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So I want to tell you a happy story. It's short. It's a story about a turtle. Every 1,000 years, a blind turtle floats from the bottom of an ocean as large as the earth and floats all the way up to the surface of the ocean as large as the earth. And it's blind, and it's only every 1,000 years. And somehow it swims through the yoke, the collarbone of an ox. And that is rare. It's extremely rare. So this is an image that goes along with the teaching about precious human birth. The fact that we're here, that I'm here with my molecular integrated combination of traits and history, that Andi, saying it right, and that all of us are here is a miracle. I'm not talking about a religious miracle necessarily, but it might be. That depends on who each of us are. But it's rare and precious. Here we are. We're so fortunate to be here to hurt that one day we won't be here, and that we'll lose people that we love. We'll lose our health. We'll lose our capacities. I won't cry. But you know, it's a happy story, but it raises some questions. So some of the questions are, who are we? Who are we tonight? Were any of you confused whether there was one or two Festies? At first, I wasn't sure if Festi was part of Dolores's memory. And then there was like a new dog, but it was also, so I was like, it's a little bit of the feeling of not having, like, wait, what? Is there one Festi? Two Festies? Who are we here tonight? We might be aging. We might be dealing with illness ourselves. We might work with people who are ill. We might have family members who are ill. Regardless of where we are on the spectrum, we all know we're headed in a certain direction. As Ram Dass says, we are all walking each other home, right? So, and how are we? How is it for us? How is it for each of us to know that we are timed, you know, on this mortal coil? I'm so glad you brought so much Shakespeare into it. I was like, yes. So who are we tonight, but who are we every day? We have so many different identities. Dolores has a set of Shakespearean texts that are annotated, and her daughter just wants to flippantly get rid of them. There's a, it's like not to jump all on Tamika. She's young. She doesn't have the same experience that Dolores has. So there are some considerations. And what I think I'm going to do is say that the happy story of precious human birth has, raises these questions. What do we do? What's our life made of? And how do we handle all of the changes and the fleeting nature of it, the difficulties of it? And how do we, there's a couple of books that some of us may have read or at least heard of. How do we die well? How do we die with dignity? Right? Death with dignity is talked about in the book that Dolores finds, and it's a term we all know. And I'm going to come back to dignity and give you a little etymology later. But here are some things that crossed my mind while listening to each of the episodes. As enjoyable and meaningful as the story is, and their end of life decisions and their various ploys, and the details of what actually happens is important because we're all here each week, or I've listened to each week, and I hope to come to more. And this is a great podcast. It's a great topic, but in a way, the details aren't, the details that will happen for you and for you is what matters. They're going to be different, right? It might not be also, obviously, it's not going to be Alzheimer's and cancer stage 4, but it could be something else, right? Eventually. So I have thought about the relationships in the story. There were times where I was just sort of like, I thought that the voice actors did a great job of being kind of like oblivious at times. And I think that really everyone has, so that question, who are you? Everyone in the story has a different set of needs. Their lives are different times, different places in their life story. So I thought about Dolores and Howard with their different life-limiting illnesses. At a certain point, they're not on the same page, right? The difference between Tamika and her partner. Tamika is like, they're going to the center, nursing home, retirement center, nursing home, right? Very, very well handled, I thought, as a writer. And Gabby's like, well, wait a minute, we make room for our parents. The difference between Tamika and Jared. So I thought, Jared's like, speedy, hurry up. I've got to get back to work. And he talks fast. And I was like, dude, slow down. And then the similarity between Jared and Sonia, right? She's just as glib as he is. What's that?
Don't stare at me.
She is as glib as he is speedy. I'm like, okay, they married well. They're gonna, they match each other. Which would you choose as your kids? Wow, like which would I choose as mine when you're an elder? And if your own parent has passed, both mine have, both in the last 3 years, consider how this is sort of a little bit of a thought, right? How do many of you may already know, right? You may have already thought about this by virtue of being here. You may already have your plan. You may already have all your medical paperwork, but who knows? Maybe there's conversations to have with loved ones, right? Or maybe you help other people with this, right? I know some of you do. So have we considered, how do we think about this?
Is that a question we can actually take literally? Because I really want to know.
Yeah.
Kid, yeah,
I want to, I have a couple of other things to share, but I think this is a good time to open it up for conversation so that it's not just me sitting here yakking. If you're not part of the cast, or even if you are, actually, maybe especially if you are, or the crew, or the author, what's important for you about the story, the podcast? How do you feel about the characters? And how does this touch your mind, your heart, your gut about your own life or others in your relationships? Anyone have?
I wanna know that the dog's gonna be okay.
The dog is gonna be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna be taken care of.
Yeah, sure.
It matters to Dolores and Howard, and the kids are not paying attention to that. But it has
Yeah.
become, or she has become important.
Mhm.
I agree. She's been part of every episode. She's
Not
a
ev-
family member.
Not every episode, but
When she came, I don't know if you noticed at the very first episode, there's like a little bark. And they're like, oh, dog reminds me of Festy, like our old dog. So she sort of appeared there because it was her.
Howard almost runs into her driving, right?
Yeah.
Dolores
Yeah.
says, "Watch out for the dog,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure about this. And then she comes in, I think, in the third episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say third.
Yeah. Do you remember, Richard, when Festy comes in? Festy, it was hard because they kept on changing the dog's name on them.
Oh.
And so they're like, what's the dog's name gonna be this time?
And taking care of the dog, they don't pay so much attention to themselves, or it's not, I think it's not as important. It's not like they are dying, that
Mhm.
they need to take care of her and she distracts them. I mean, there is love, it's love.
And also, but there is also the parallel because we're talking about care. You know, maybe the most important word. I don't know. For me, I think, I guess maybe love, but care is paramount, right? There's a famous story that as the Buddha was dying, he said, things fall apart, tread the path with care. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves. So I agree with you. They've been concerned in different ways with Festi throughout, which is maybe what they're asking for, is to be cared for in a way that feels right for them, which is really challenging, you know. Other,
As Howard, I don't think Howard is all that anxious to be cared for.
um,
I mean, from being in,
mhm.
I won't talk about what's coming, but to be in the process of where he is, he's being pretty down to earth about it and saying, look, this is the way it is.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna do it, but you need to stay. So I mean, he's caring for her. So I don't see that he's so intent on caring for himself. I don't think he's really that bothered. So far, I didn't notice it when I was doing it, so.
no, I think Howard, I agree that Howard has clarity early on. He knows what his choices are. I think I'm talking about, that is care from my perspective.
Mm.
Care, I have a very broad perspective of care, and I don't assume that everyone shares that with me,
Mhm.
but that is being able to make choices about one's end of life.
Oh, I see.
That is
Caring
palliative
caring
care,
about yourself.
end of life care, and honoring what other people
Mhm.
want and what they're asking for. Someone I know right now is opting out of heart surgery because her parents both died at young ages after their surgery. And she's getting on a train and going to Oregon. And, she got the support that she needed to make that decision. That's the kind of care I meant. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, no, that's true. He does care about himself. I didn't mean he wasn't a carer.
Yeah.
But in the context that we were thinking about, do we care about,
Right.
you care about me? And that sort of thing.
And he does care about Dolores.
Oh, yeah,
He's,
yeah, very much.
any other views to what Howard is I'm sorry, I called you.
Yeah.
Howard.
We do that.
That's what gives me.
I do it all the time.
I just go ahead and answer it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, because the characters all definitely speak to many, people in my life, but me as well, like all of the combination of everybody. So, I don't know if it seems like an every person, like an every daughter and every son or an every parent, to the listeners. That's, does it feel like that when you're listening? Do you feel like you recognize these characters in your own lives somehow?
Not in my own life.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So,
because there's another story where they don't care. I mean, they're not involved. They don't want to be involved.
people who do.
I know, so these are great
Yeah.
to have kids that care enough about you that want to do all that, so.
So I know nobody knows that Dolores is progressing through Alzheimer's. But Howard knows, so to me, there's not a conversation about what you can do for somebody going down this journey with Alzheimer's. There's a lot you can do. So there's, besides the progression, the stages and changes in the brain and what's happening to the brain, there's new medication out there, there's things we can do behaviorally to slow the transition. And so I'm just kind of a little surprised by Howard's character that he hasn't said, maybe we should look into this, see what you're really gonna be facing, see, is it going to be as quick or as bad as you're thinking, as fast as it is? Nobody wants to get Alzheimer's, but there are some things proactively that can be done now to move through that journey a little slower, having more quality of life for a longer time than I think Dolores is thinking is gonna happen to her. So I'm
He's
kind of
thinking
worried that
about-
they don't have any kind of, they have nobody else to reach out to because she had Tony, but I'm surprised that Howard's not, as much as he doesn't want her to go, that he's not saying, maybe we should talk to some folks and see about this disease.
He does say there are therapies and treatments, and that's when he says that when he tries to make the case for her to go to a center. But she she doesn't want to. She's scared of what happened to her mom and to Nancy. But I hear you. I mean, I agree with you 100%.
Those are older generations,
family-
they didn't have the same
The
treatment.
family is not having an open conversation because the kids have made up their minds. And they are moving quickly, they're, and we understand, right? When we listen to all of them, we think, oh, I'm gonna try not to swear. Tamika is dealing with a possibility of cancer. And even if it isn't, she's distracted right now.
But that, she brings it too early. I think she shouldn't bother them with something she doesn't know.
Right.
It adds so much. And therefore she doesn't pay really attention to them because she's really, and I understand that, but she should know, I mean, I'm one like, okay, wait until you have the result and you worry when you have the result, not before. And I think lots of human beings are always worried like so much before what's going to happen. I know that if I get bad Alzheimer, I don't want anything. I don't want treatment. I don't want to have, be on the sofa watching TV that I might not understand anyhow. So that is really clear for me. And I'm not afraid of death. So my whole family is in France, except Chloe, my daughter.
Ah,
So it's kind of really neat. It's very simple. And I have made things simple. And I think that the daughter is bringing too much. Because the Dolores is not only scared about what's going to become to her, what's going to be, but now she's worried about her daughter and suddenly much more.
mhm. Yeah, what I wrote down here, the kids are, and I think I have a little bit of a question for you, Andy. The kids are at times, not all of, sometimes they're thoughtful here and there, but there's invalidation, they're dismissive, insensitive, even oblivious. Why? Well, we could say they're self-absorbed. Our culture certainly promotes self-absorption. We're all on a hamster wheel. We're so busy,
Yeah.
we hardly know how to stop.
Or scared.
Right. So, self-absorption, fearfulness,
Yeah.
they're scared,
Yeah.
right? I would say number one, we're all scared, you know. I'm scared, even though I'm at peace with dying. I have death meditations, but you know, it's like, it's the front and the back. I understand it. I practice impermanence practices, but yeah, I'm scared too. There's
Can
a
I
discomfort.
ask you about that?
Yes.
Oh, so then what are you scared of?
Death.
I will get to that. I just want to, I just want to read this list.
Okay, well, the way you said that, it was like,
I'll give you the short answer. Because I don't know exactly what it will be like. So it's like,
okay,
I've-
so it's the after death that you're scared of.
no, it's that it's not easy to die. It's not easy to be suffocating. We don't know, we don't know much about it. You know, there's all kinds of information that we have about what it's like, but we don't know what it's like until it's us. And so I think I have some anxiety about dying and saying goodbye to my children, you know. But in addition to fearfulness, there's just discomfort with death. People don't die at home anymore, you know. When people died at home, you saw people dying from an early age, and you experienced your grief, but you kind of understood this is what happens.
The kids are kicking them out of the house.
Now
so,
people
you know.
get carted off, or even if they're or have family around, they're in the hospital, and then they go to skilled nursing, then they go to rehab, then they go to a facility. The transportation has separated families. Our honor family connection the way it does in other cultures. You know, we've sort of created the problem, right?
Doesn't honor all in America.
Right.
It's certainly not only in
Right.
America, but
Certainly
that is
take
so
care of it.
well known around the world, that in America, you better not get old because your kids are not, you know, gonna shove you to the nursing home. That's what I love about America, that has always scared me compared to Hispanic cultures or Asian cultures, or, you know, even France is kind of in between, but we take care of old people.
Well, we're not allowed to
When-
die with dignity.
Yeah, and that's a really beautiful word, dignity. That's what, you
Mm.
know,
Well, isn't that what this is all about?
that's important.
Right.
This whole story is about that.
It doesn't change the law.
Yeah,
We still have laws that won't allow you to die with dignity.
Well,
yeah.
You have more options if you go to Oregon State, because they have different laws. But here, you're talking about being afraid to die. Well, it's not just
Right.
with yourself, but you're also allowing your family to have to sit there and watch you suffer because there's nothing they can do.
Okay, so I appreciated this episode because of the ending, because you brought in part of medical, well, you brought in power of attorney, and I don't know what lies ahead. I will listen like everyone else. There are some things that we can do. Right, so a lot of women, no, I believe me, I hear you. I'm thinking about where I'm gonna move to as I get older, right?
Absolutely.
I wanted to come back to this, though. I think I remember seeing my parents get old and being a little irritable about it. Like, not because I had to work hard, because I didn't live near them. I moved. I was that middle child that left New York. But when I was young enough to make a full recovery, I told people. But just, you know, it was like, I remember seeing my dad, who was very, you know, an artist, a musician, a writer, a maker, and I idealized him as I was growing up. You know, he was the maternal parent. And I remember, you know, he was charismatic, people liked him, he was a good storyteller. And I remember seeing him get kind of I remember thinking like, Dad, like, where'd your finesse go? You know, you used to kind of like know how to, and I just remember being kind of irritable about it. And then it was years later. I mean, I continued to, of course, love him and be a loving daughter to him. But I remember noticing it, thinking, I idealized my dad. My dad's just a guy. And as he gets older, his glue is coming apart. And whatever it is that holds us together starts to wear out, and you start dropping things, forgetting things. You know, you have food on your shirt, and your kids are like, ew. So it's not entirely dignified, right? We start to lose ourselves. And Eastern teachings would say, well, we were never a solid entity anyway. We've always been an aggregate. There are causes and conditions that enable me to sit here and not urinate. But in 20 years, hopefully that long, it won't be that way. I'll have to go, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But you say, excuse me, and it will be already too late.
so I in the margin, I wrote, why did Andy write it this way? And I would really like to, if it's not,
Yeah.
putting you on the spot, I'd love you to say something about the family members and.
It's similar to that. I think that writing it was a balance of thinking of it as the kids with the older adults, but then also putting myself in the older adults and thinking with my kids, right? So constantly going back and forth. I think that it's also, how they say man versus self, it's man versus society too. So it was also a play on how society does dismiss older adults and doesn't take them seriously, does not have time for them. And the kids are busy with their lives. And when you have especially two people who are functioning together, it is really, really easy to be like, oh, they're fine. Oh, we don't even have to think about it. They're fine. Nothing's wrong because they're taking care of themselves. And it's kind of more when you are forced to wake up to see what's happening, that then people finally take a step forward to help or assist, because it's very much easier to be like, okay, I don't have to worry about that right now because there are so many other things to worry about. And to what you were saying about the Alzheimer's stuff, I'm not sure that everybody knows. My sister she's doing her master's in library sciences, and she was saying that there's so many cases of medical professionals who will not tell people that they're experiencing early Alzheimer's. And my dad was a doctor. He thinks perhaps maybe there isn't actually insurance that covers Alzheimer's care. And so a doctor, if you're being treated for this Alzheimer's, all of a sudden you have to spend a lot more time with them and it's a longer visit, and it may not be covered by Medicaid. Maybe he didn't know for sure if that was what was playing into it. But she was reading a lot about, and I keep on looking at the two of you too, because I know you're in it as well, but how not every doctor or medical person will tell you that there are signs of early Alzheimer's and there are these things that you could do about it. And she was getting so mad. She's like, all these caregivers were saying there's something going on with this person, and they were almost being told, oh, it's nothing, it's fine, you don't have to do anything about it. So I think part of it was, the lack of knowledge that we're getting from the world around us was kind of playing into it as well. So, and like Howard, like Richard said, to bring it all up. It's like the point was to bring this up so we would talk about it, and we could say, what, Texas doesn't allow this state does. Why are they not talking about Alzheimer's? Why are they not doing these things? So we could say to these fictional characters, you're doing it wrong. And I wouldn't do it that way.
Yeah.
I know I would do this, or to go, oh gosh, maybe I did not call my parents this week and I have to call them and say, how are you doing? What's going on? So to kind of maybe wake us up.
I thought that that was a very key part of the story thus far. The non-disclosure, you know, there's a lot of disclosure that eventually happens and there will be more of it, but you know, they can't tell. And in this episode, it was, Dolores says, I wish we could just tell them and have our family around us. That is what everyone, that is the most common thing that people say. When people are asked, what is dying well to you? What is death with dignity? Or maybe not that complicated, maybe just like, how would you like it to be? I would like my family around me. They're in a situation where they can't tell their family. No, I mean, they feel, Dolores and Howard feel that they're not disclosing, right? They're not talking about they want to end their lives. They're not talking about his cancer. And I agree with you, by the way, but it worked for the story for Tamika to disclose. Right when they were going to tell them, she tells them, and that trumps it. So, what do we do about this? What's the, you know, it's not like there's a neat solution. It's a systemic problem, right? It's a systems problem in our
Absolutely.
culture.
What I was gonna add to that, absolutely, it's definitely a system and a societal issue. I think, you know, my take on why they're not telling their kids is they're already seeing that they're looking at aging as a problem to solve. Everybody's treating this as it's a problem that needs a solution rather than an experience that they should, you know, be open to exploring. It's not really something that needs to be solved or fixed. They just need to be curious and be open to asking questions. So I couldn't imagine if my kids were trying to solve my aging as a problem, that I was now going to add to that, oh, and I also have a diagnosis. I mean, they would really bombard me and not let me speak. So I can totally see why they're holding back. And I think that's where the shift needs to happen when everyone's like, how do you talk? How do we talk? It's not, you don't talk about it like it's something to solve or fix. You talk about it as something you're wanting to explore.
Yeah.
You know, let's just explore this subject together. You're not looking for solutions. You're just trying to connect with what's important. And that's not something somebody fixes. That's just something somebody creates an environment so that you can share. And I think that's definitely not what this family's doing. And any subject.
Yeah.
Everything is fix. And you know, what in our work, we've noticed, you know, there's 4 ways people respond to something that they're really uncomfortable with. They either deny it, avoid it, resist it, or they impulsively jump into actions to fix it.
Yeah.
And that's what this family's doing. Everybody's jumping into action to fix things and no one's listening.
And there's a lack of openness.
Right.
And I think that when people are scared, they contract, they tighten up, they gird themselves, they clench. And metaphorically, so whether it's fear or just our compulsive action culture, our busyness, which is to some extent, again, systemic, because everybody is feeling the crunch of everyone's under pressure. I mean, in other words, it's not always 100% optional. People are working 2 and 3 jobs to get by. And so they're on the hamster wheel of action and they can't really slow down. And then there are other people who are just don't want to. They're closed off. They're not into connection, like you saying.
I'd like to, can I throw in something that happened to me yesterday?
Yeah, please.
Because I have come to the conclusion, almost totally, and partly because of you, was that when I deal with this, it's gonna be the helium. Because so I did should I not have brought that up in front of everybody? Just kidding. So anyway, so I started doing some research about helium, you know, where do you get it and all that stuff. And I found this place, and the first place it came up said, yeah, yes, they have these containers. And so yesterday I said, all right, I'm just gonna go there and see what, I wanna see what this is. So I go in and said, my lord, it's a huge place. These things that are like this tall and huge thing, everything they sell is, I guess, in
Like
this size.
medical grade or yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I walk into the officer where people are waiting on people. And there's two guys sitting in there and I'd say they're both maybe in their 40s, I'm just guessing. And they said, well, how can I help you? And I said, well, I said, I want some, yeah, my brain just left. Helium, yeah.
You want some helium? Yeah.
Hey, Dee.
Canister?
So well, I was already over somewhere, and I said, I bought some helium. But I want a small amount. I just want a small amount. And so the guy says, we used to do that, but it was so expensive to do it in those smaller containers that we just quit, and then I guess it was too expensive to sell or something. And then he made the mistake. He said, well, why do you want it?
Party.
Well, they're just character. Yeah.
And so I just looked at them both and I said, you're probably gonna ask me to leave, but I'm gonna tell you why I want it. And I went into the whole story, about why I was there, what I was trying to do and all that. And while I'm telling the story, I watched their faces and their jaws dropped. Their eyes were that big,
Wow.
looking at me like this. And so, I was watching all that. And so, but finally, after I did enough explaining, that all of a sudden, it hit them. Oh, I understand what you're talking about. Even though I was very explicit about it, they didn't hear it until, oh, I know what you want. Well, let's see. I think you can go to Target or Walmart or what you can get what you want. Get what you want.
Wait, where?
Well, yeah.
So well, I won't go through the whole thing, but so by the time we got into a few of it, all of a sudden he said, "Sir, we have never had anybody come in here and ask us to what you're asking for. Never." I said, "Oh, well, there you have it." And so as I was leaving anyway, I said, "Well, I guess I made your day." The guy in the back says, "Yeah, we've never had this before." I thought we were just talking about it. And then the end of the story is that today I was telling my sister, whom you met, about this, and the first thing I said was what was happening at the beginning. She said, "You didn't tell
You
him."
did do it, yes. And you're like, well, of course I did. Yeah.
Of course I told him. She was not happy that I told him. Anyway, so it just punctuates to what you're saying about, there's so many places where people don't want to engage for whatever reason. They just don't want to think about it, I guess,
Yeah.
And particularly, I think if they're, and my opinion is that if they think there is something going when you get it through, when you leave, if they've got their mind that they're, like you said, like the ancients and all talk about it, for me, I don't care, because I don't think death exists. So if it kind of takes the pressure off when you look at it that way, because then you have to be concerned, well, if I don't do all these 10 things, I'm going to hell, that sort of thing. That's another layer that people have to deal with. And I never criticize people. I just say, look, you're doing what you need to do for yourself. I hope you're happy. That's all I care. And then we just go on. I'm sorry, I just had going, but
No, it's okay. It's good.
Yeah, there'll be a run on helium sales.
I was gonna say, their business name, helium is us.
yeah.
They go into a different part of a different
Yeah,
business
it's
sector.
the top of the list, what I got. Yeah, carbon monoxide was the second one, and then guns and then jumping off bridges and, I mean, they get.
Train.
All that stuff is painful.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Then I got to think, actually jumping off of high places wouldn't be too bad because by the time you're halfway down, you're probably already gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
just,
But you still go through the process of getting to that point.
oh, well, if you're ready to go, you go. So,
So you don't have to jump off anything.
yeah, well, yeah, anyway.
Well, what I did want to, raise the topic of medical directives. Because medical directives, and what I mean, and many of you, I have a feeling know already. There's a medical power of attorney where you can name up to 3 people to speak for you if you're in surgery or under medication, or if you're not able to communicate anymore. And then there is the do not resuscitate. And that's a controversial one because, I'm young enough and I have kids who still need me. They're young adults, but they still need their mom. They've told me. I'm not gonna sign a DNR until I'm old and frail, at which point the chest compressions can do a lot of damage. But it's a choice. I'm just talking about the choices. Medical power of attorney is maybe the most important piece of paper. I want to choose who speaks for me. I've been in the hospital. I've seen, well, I'll tell you a story in a minute. Medical power of attorney, the power of attorney is really just the financial, give me access to, so I can manage real estate, pay bills. It's not really about death. It's really about the economic practicalities and other practicalities. The directive to physicians is where you say, I want to opt out of life support if I am terminal or, not going to survive. So people know about these. I want to say you can research more if you don't already have them, get them. People will say, yeah, but I'm only 45. I'm like, well, if you drive a car, you should have them. And people will say, oh, I have them. And I'm great in the hospital. I was like, may I have a copy for our files? Oh, it's in the bank in my safe deposit box where it does no good. You have to have a copy. Or your home safe. I have a home safe. And so I mean, I want to say that these are, not only are they important, so have a copy on your phone, keep a copy in your glove compartment, give a copy to your executor and 2 or 3 other people, no matter how old you are. But the real value of them are the conversations that you're going to have and your own inner conversation. Who do I trust? By the way, you should update your paper, your NPOA every couple of years because people get old, people get their own dementia, people pass, and sometimes you're not friends with someone anymore. So you have to review these documents, but carry them with you. But the real value is coming to terms with this. And, I think when you've lived a certain number of years, you get it a little more every day. I know the direction I'm going in, things aren't getting easier. But I wanted to share something with you about dignity. Because this is like you said, this is really what it's about, is dignity. So I looked up the word because I thought, we talk about dignity. Dolores is talking about it, but then she throws the Walkman. And, it's not easy to have dignity all the time, right? When you're old and when you're dying or you have a life-limiting chronic illness. What does it really mean? So I looked it up. It's an Indo-European word. Meaning, meaning, our most common associations, right? They always start with the most common usage. Worthiness, merit, or honor, coming from Latin, French, and Greek. Sanskrit, dix, D-I-K-S, dignity, dix, to consecrate or dedicate. Also from Sanskrit, to take or accept. Like, I take your offer, I accept. And in showing graciousness, also related to the Latin for to teach and to be fitting or proper or suitable. So what I take from all that is is that dignity is accepting our finitude, having a suitable response, and not protesting and being aggressive, but accepting. So the last thing we want to do is fight with this and kind of, go like this and pretend this isn't happening. So we need to open up first right here and do our own contemplative or psychological or spiritual or prayerful work around this. And then we need to have the courage to write them down, to tell stories about it, to have conversations about it, to ask people to be open and to listen and to be curious, as you were saying, and not be dogmatic and not be closed off to it, and to normalize it. So I was going to say something else, but I don't remember. So any stories about medical paperwork? I've seen quarrels among siblings. I've seen lots of quarrels with adult siblings who have a different view.
Absolutely.
And they're like, yeah, but dad told me he wanted this. Yes, but he wrote this down. Yeah, but that's not witnessed and there's no, what's it called?
Medical.
Call me Dolores. No,
Notarization.
Advanced director or.
Where-
Notary.
Will.
notary.
Yeah.
It wasn't notarized. I have a record, it's like, any thoughts?
Oh, I've got a bunch of them. And unfortunately, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. The last 25 years, I have buried 40 loved ones. And I can assure you, it is not something enjoyable. My mother had 8 children. My father fathered 10, 2 from a previous marriage. So I pretty much buried all of my family. And yes, before when one parent dies, you have siblings, I've got all these siblings that are all arguing about, well, this was said, that was said, and this. Dad had a will. And I had a sister that said no. She went to his deathbed and tried to give him to sign everything over to her. So yeah, you have siblings that have all sorts of feelings and emotions and memories and ideas of how they want things done. Because they think, and out of fairness, I think they think they're doing the right thing. But when I just recently, back in 22, my brother Paul passed from cancer, and he fought it. He was diagnosed. Paul and Patsy, my sister, were diagnosed with cancer, both in the same year, practically the same month. She passed that December. Paul decided he was going to fight it with everything he had. And I told him, you want to fight this? I'm with you. You tell me what you need, and I will do my very best to make it happen. What I couldn't do is find someone that could save him. But it wasn't for a lack of trying. The only other thing that I could do when he was dying was just said, you tell me what you want. When you're in the hospital, you tell me who you want to visit. If you don't want someone to visit, I'll make sure they're not here. And who you want, if I have to go and drag them here, I'll get them here. This is all about you. Yeah, there was a lot of things that I wanted. There was a lot of things, documents I wanted, stuff that I wanted to be done. But it wasn't about me. It was about him, because he was dying. Same time, I also had another brother that was in the hospital, my brother Gene. He had a massive stroke. And because he waited, his wife tried to get him to the hospital. But he said, no, I'm fine. He refused to go. She finally had to call the neighbor and force him in an ambulance and get him to the hospital. Well, because of that, it damaged a lot of his brain.
Mm.
And so it left him with these seizures that he would have periodically. So I was also there trying to be with him. His kids, he has 2 children, 2 sons, were just absolutely absent, just not there. And I kept saying, you need to go see your dad. You need to spend some time with him. They just, yeah. You know, I'm working, all these excuses. You know, you're there. Yes, I'm his sister, but you're his children. You need to be there. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot. I've probably seen the whole thing. You know, every kind of excuse or belief or idea. I mean, his son said, oh, well, he wanted his money to go to his grandchildren. Well, you know what? He never put it in his will, and he never said that to me.
It's just like this. This is just, I mean, sometimes it's like
Yes,
this.
no, you're right.
Sometimes we see wonderful situations with people showing up, helping, asking, what do you need? And sometimes it comes down to material greed and maybe need. And I think the systemic part of it is that people are scrounging to get by. And, you know, I think that's out there for sure, hands down. I've seen it too. But I think the podcast does a great job of focusing on the relationship dynamics around death and dying and not talking about it, making quick decisions, not being open, hurrying because it's easier to hurry and get it over with. Going to a facility, you know, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I told my kids, based on what was going on in my own family, I said, guys, I am not going to ask you to take care of me when I'm older. I said, I will just go to a place and accept the crappy food and I'll be cared for, as opposed to you having to remodel your room, you know, your house to make room for me. And, you know, facilities were different then. The facilities and the people in them and the way they're being run has really changed. It's gotten really frightening. I've heard terrible stories. So, you know, what do we do? That's why I think, you know, there are lots of unknowns when you say, why am I anxious? I don't believe in death either from a certain perspective. I don't believe that I am this solid entity that's immutable. I am an impermanent aggregate of conditions, right? But that, you know, but there's also, you know, when you're crossing the street and a truck's coming, you get out of the way because you want to keep living. You know, I want to be here for my kids. If there was, you know, so how we do this, it depends on our families, depends on our values and beliefs. You know, some people are opposed to assisted suicide. Other people think that it's the most humane thing. Do we really want the government, you know, sort of being the arbiter of it? How do we do it? Are we asking, my mom, a year ago in June, you know, was like, she was begging me to please get her something. And I was like, you know, Mom, I can't, it's against the law, I'll be in trouble. And then my sister called and she was like, how could you, you're a therapist and a chaplain, how could you not help your mom? And it's like, so the one other thing I was going to say in terms of lack of care and lack of humanity, I've seen people who did not want to give pain medication to someone who was passing because they were opposed to medicine. You know, So it's like what we could do is practice letting go of ourselves and how tightly we hold on to our perceptions, our ideas, our beliefs, and being really open. You know, maybe medication isn't for me, but maybe it's for you. Maybe assisted suicide isn't what I want to do, but maybe it's for you. This, by the way, would solve a lot of other problems in life as well if we could open to other perspectives and just like open the hand and go, maybe I don't know. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, had a teaching which was like, are you sure? It goes to what you're talking about. Are you sure? Maybe we could say, I don't know. I'm open.
I think one of the other big purposes of the podcast, much like Richard, you shared with the helium story, you were so comfortable sharing with those gentlemen why you were buying it and or why you were interested in it, because you didn't have any concern about what they thought. You know, you weren't worried about being judged by them or them coming back with an opinion. And I think that if everyone was to look at it that way, it's like planning a wedding. Like, it's not your job to tell someone how to plan their wedding. You just listen to the details, and it may sound crazy, you know, they're gonna have this and that, but it's like, it's their ending. It's your, you know, it's your ending to your story. And I think that's what this is about, podcast, to get everyone comfortable talking about how they want their ending to be without everybody thinking they have something to say about it. So it's really about just listening. You know, we have to start listening to ourselves first.
Yeah, I kind of learned something, when that comes up in reality, I just say, well, thank you for sharing. You know, I mean, that's the end of the conversation, but there was no conversation anyway, so.
Right.
When
Absolutely.
you talked about dignity, I think I felt like it was more on the one side, the person, but I'm more worried about the other side. How are we treated with dignity?
Uh-huh.
Because I know, I feel, I hope that I'm still gonna be, you know, that way. I'm not gonna be angry at other people because I'm dying or I don't feel good. But what about the others? That's what is.
Well, I think the reason why I focused on that acceptance part is because I think that there's a part of death which is not dignified. In other words, you know, like the Buddha wrote about like all of like the substances, you know, what we're made of, you know, mucus, vomit, shit, you know, it's messy. It's so I hear you. I agree with you. I was talking about a dignified perspective. What about being treated with dignity? Being treated by listening, with respect, with compassion, and being present and listening and being present and being compassionate. But I think that part of our work, our internal work, is getting comfortable with the squalor of it, you know?
I agree with you, and if you are comfortable, to me, then I would be able to say, I have no control over how you feel about what I'm doing. I can't control how you feel.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say you're wrong or right or anything, but I'm not saying I'd even say that. But in my inside, I'm saying, I can't control what that idiot's saying.
Richard, it's not only about the feeling and how
Did I say?
it's about it's the action. The feeling is okay. You feel what you feel. You don't like, you know, old people, okay. But how you treat me, but in the action, you know, that not feeling maybe me or not. I mean, people dying. Not what about did you drink? You know, are you drinking enough or did you eat your food and how you feel? Okay, so that's what I see or what I see in movies.
Yeah.
About that is bothering.
How we treat others
Yeah.
is completely non-separate from us,
Yeah.
right? When we help someone, you know, we feel good.
Yes.
And so if we could just help people, I mean, how do you teach that to people? How do you share that? By living it, you know? When I hurt someone's feelings. I remember once when I hurt a friend's feelings and I went inside and I was like I was like devastated because I felt I had cut myself, you know, I don't mean like cutting, I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like I had hurt myself by being mean to someone. This was when I was about, I don't know, 8 or something. When I am helpful and kind to someone, it's not like an ego trip, like, oh, I'm so good at being a caregiver. It's like, my heart is open. I feel softer. I feel kinder.
Yeah.
So if we could treat people that way, then, you know, it's like everything could be better, but you know, all we can do is practice and model it and be quiet.
A
Yeah.
little story about my grandmother dying at 95 at the American hospital in Paris, which was at that time and still one of the best hospital in the city. She was 95 and it was painful. She was having pain. And the doctor didn't want to give her more morphine because she was going to be addicted to it.
Oh my,
I laughed, not class. I
I know.
would say, come on, she's 95.
95.
that's what
She's
my,
95.
that's
And
exactly
that
what
is
my
dignity,
dad's,
that is compassion, that is stop being an asshole. And ask me the words in French. And,
That's the age to start doing drugs.
Really?
give her more morphine because
I wasn't specific before, but the person who would not give, my dad's wife did not want to give my dad his pain, his morphine.
Mhm.
And he was screaming, screaming in pain. And, you know, we wound up having a big fight.
Yeah.
And eventually she capitulated and she didn't want him to go, but it was very selfish.
Mm.
She wanted him for another day and a half
yes, because she
and
died
he
the
was
next
watching
day.
him scream. So I hear you.
I wanted to,
Messy.
I was so angry, but at the same time, I wanted to laugh. I mean, so stupid, but.
Yeah.
I know we're,
Yeah, we're like,
I know we're near the end, but
did it,
I
yeah.
gotta tell you this quick thing that happened in our family. I'm talking about family sharing. And we were all drinking like we always did. And my former wife, was there and we were, and often it would say, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna have done when you die? Well, let's see, I'm gonna have a funeral and get buried. And I'm gonna get cremated and my ex-wife said, I am definitely going to get cremated. And I said, why? I'm claustrophobic.
You know, that's nothing though.
That's.
I
yeah.
swear to God, I swear she was not kidding.
Hilarious.
That's why it was so funny, because she was not kidding.
What if they put you in a coffin and you're not allowed to
Yeah,
leave?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
But
Good,
thinking
so-
about being in a coffin
Yeah.
as a living being, I can understand. Anyway.
Well, Jinji, thank you so much for leading us to this conversation. I hope you all come back next